away the noise of the visionary. The world never saw them coming.
Hello and welcome. We are the Aussie Guys. I'm AJ. Here with me is G. How are you, G?
Better since 5:30 this morning. When AJ got me up to do this, ladies. Oh, yeah, the girls will be ready 6 o'clock. 5:30 on a Sunday morning. I'm getting up. It's freezing cold. And I get here and we're not on.
Well, we put the game on.
The game's on. The game on.
It's a win-win.
It wasn't much of a win watching that first half.
Well, we can talk about that with our guests. We have the girls from Just Win Ladies. So we have Angria, Trask and Jenny Lynn. And it's great to chat to you girls. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having us on.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's nice to be back.
It is, yes. And we had you on last year, Angria, and that was fantastic. And let's talk Raiders, man. Oh, actually, before we do that, tell us a little bit about, because your pod's fairly recent. It's fantastic. And you were showing me the gear that you've got on the go as well, which is great. But the logo, the pod, it's a fantastic listen. And I should mention also people can follow you at Just Win Ladies, and they can get all your details from there. But how's the pod going?
It's going pretty well.
We are wonderful.
We are the
very
best.
Humble, but yeah. We've been having such a good time, and we've gotten really, really good feedback, and everybody seems really excited about having like just women on a podcast finally. So that was one of the things that I think we were really, really jazzed about.
Followers have been really great and supportive. It's awesome.
Look at Angria's mic. That's professional.
That's a good mic.
This
actually.
is super first.
Yeah.
You know, my mentor is Kenny Stapler from the Pillaging podcast. So he told me, like, he gave me everything that I needed, because I did some older podcasts, and when I was on last year, I had done a different one, and I had just kind of like a $15 microphone from Amazon, and it sounded like poo. So I decided I had to do something about it. So Kenny kind of guided me, and yeah.
That looks great.
Much better.
I bought you a couple of T-shirts. You can buy me one of those. Oh. You don't buy me
It's really not as expensive as it looks.
It looks extremely expensive.
It looks very fancy, yeah.
I know.
And I must say,
but really,
it's not that expensive.
It's not that.
It's not.
Right.
The microphone was like less than $100 or less than $200, excuse me. And the pop filter was $20 or $30. And then I had to buy a cord and the mic stand, but everything all told was less than $300.
it's pretty good.
Mine was $40.
And I can hear you, so it's working well.
Yeah,
Nice.
which is fun.
So what's the thing in
Yeah.
front? What's that called?
Pop filter. But
What's
that's what that is.
What,
That's
this foam thing?
Yeah.
What's it meant to
Yeah.
do?
That's a bit
Yeah.
better.
What's it meant to do?
It's pretty
It's
much
just
the
meant
same.
to eliminate like the pops and the cracks and the little like
Okay.
in your voice and stuff like
Oh,
that.
it's not working for me. My list still come through.
For me either, but it's probably because I sat way too far back.
I said to
from the microphone.
AJ, I said, could you make me sound like, L. James Jones or someone like that? Just there must be some filter on there you can change my voice. Well, they do it in every movie when they ring up for the hostage. Like they put a thing on and it doesn't sound anything like them.
Hostage voice. That wouldn't quite be right. What we want.
You know what I mean?
Man.
You can just buy those at the spy store down the street.
Hey, there we go. We need some
Do you
spy
guys have
stores.
spy stores down there? I'm sure you everywhere has spy stores.
Yeah, spy stores.
Oh, man. Hey, listen, let's start talking Raiders because, man, there's a lot to talk about too. There's a ton to talk about. There's been so much happening this off-season. But let's get 2017 out of the way as quickly as we possibly can.
Yes.
It was a shocking year. After getting the playoffs in 2016, which was the first time since 2002, and the Raiders were quite highly touted coming into 2017. A lot of people picking them for, certainly playoffs or to make a bit of a run. It all sort of fell flat on its face, and it was a 6-10 season, and all sorts of stuff went wrong, and Jack Del Rio was fired. But obviously, tons of news coming into the off-season and looking forward to this year. But Just your thoughts, just briefly on 2017.
Garbage.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
That's pretty brief, and that's succinct.
Dumpster fire is a term that I don't use a whole lot, but it was pretty accurate for last year.
Yeah, our coaching staff was just horrible. I can't even think of another word. Garbage.
I think the only good coach we had was one that was brand new, and then he was let go. He was the only one that actually did something. John Pagano stepped in mid-season pretty much and actually turned the defense into something that was workable and serviceable. And of course, week one that he's got the helm, we get our first interception. Yay! Which was like getting water after wandering through the desert for 2 days.
we can put an R rating on this if you wanted to describe the season, more succinctly.
No, we'll be good.
Okay.
I don't know about Jenny. You might have to worry about her.
I'm trying my best. That's why I couldn't think of any other words.
Say kids, headphones. I'll do that.
And it's such an odd thing because Jack Del Rio, certainly in his first year and in his second year, but he was in his stride and the team was sort of having such successes, and it all just fell on its face. It's hard to kind of imagine why there was that turnaround. But, you mentioned the defense. I mean, they hung on to Ken Norton Jr. for just so long, way past his use-by date. And you mentioned John Pagano, who was the ex-Chargers defensive coordinator, and it was fantastic. But obviously with John Gruden coming into the building, he's gone, which is a shame. But anyway, the whole thing with Marshawn, and it was just, there's not much to really sort of say. It was such an awful season. It was hard to watch, actually.
It was.
Yeah, it got
was
hard
really
to watch
depressing.
after the first couple of weeks. The highlight was beating the Chiefs, and then after that, everything else was kind of like, nah.
Yeah.
That's the best word for it. Nah.
Even Carr was embarrassed of himself, and everybody was. We were all embarrassed.
He should be embarrassed. I took him in a few fantasy leagues.
Yeah, after the 2016 season, you think you're golden, but that was just a disaster.
We've spent a lot of years in the dark ages, and we thought that it was time to come out into the light. But apparently we weren't ready for that just yet. There's a reason that everything happens, and I think this happened for Gruden.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yes. So we mentioned about Jack Del Rio was gone. Mark Davis was able to convince John Gruden to come out of the Monday Night Football booth, return to Oakland for his second stint as Raiders coach, signed a 10-year, $100 million contract. It was, of course, Al that gave Gruden his first job in 1998, and he went 38-26 in 4 seasons, including 12-4 in 2010 and 6 in 2001. Led the Raiders to the playoffs in 2000 and 2001, but just one postseason win each year. And then I did write down stuff here about the trade, but that, man, I don't want to sort of think about that. That was such an awful thing in retrospect. Like, why would you even do that? That was a terrible Al Davis move, certainly. Let's just start with Gruden. Your reaction, I mean, probably like me, you were sort of over the moon when the news dropped.
Yes.
Can't even explain how excited I was. I think I was on the verge of tears if I wasn't crying. I can't remember if a tear actually left my eye, but it probably did. And it has every day since. When I see him on the sidelines, it's just like, the angels are singing and the Chucky face is like just looming in the background. And we were trying to explain this last week. What did you say, Jenny? It was like losing your puppy?
If you lose your puppy or your favorite pet and you find them after months, which actually happened to me. My cat just all of a sudden disappeared. It was actually Super Bowl Sunday, and he disappeared, and I could never figure out where he went because he was an indoor cat, and I lived in an apartment complex, and it just didn't make any sense. And a couple months later, I was walking by my neighbor's apartment, and I could hear a cat meowing, and I was like, that sounds like my cat. And I knock on the door, and he opens it, and there's my cat. And I was like, you have my cat. How did you get my cat? And he was like, well, he crawled through my vent one day, and I just decided to keep him. And it sounds like a totally made up story, but my cat crawled through my vents and went to the neighbors, and he was there for months, and I got him back, and that's how we feel Gruden's back.
We knew where
amazing.
he was the whole time, and we knew he was safe.
Yeah, okay.
It's not the same.
No.
Like, I'm not a cat person, But to me, all cats sound the same. Obviously, they don't.
No, they definitely
No,
don't.
they
do
don't.
not.
They have their own voices, their own personality.
Okay.
Only cat people
like
know
people.
that. My cats are laying next to me, actually.
Quite weird, those cat people, AJ.
Are they?
Yeah, I find them a little bit strange.
Hey, settle.
We are not normal. I'm going to tell
We
you that now.
are crazy
Cats
cat ladies.
are-
I will
And they
admit that.
come when you get one, then you have to get a second one, and then they start coming in multiples. Because I had two.
That's because they breed.
This is the dumbest story, and you guys can cut this out if you want, but it's really kind of funny. My big fat cat, she got putty stuck in her butt because she sat on my son's putty. And so we had to go to the pet store and get a brush to brush this putty out of her butt. And we saw this cat in the adoption area, and I fell in love with him. I have just a special place in my heart for black cats because I've had several in my life. And he is a Maine Coon, and if you don't know anything about Maine Coons, they have the most personality of any animal I have ever met in my life. I mean, combine a cat and a dog and get all the best traits of them. They're so amazing. So amazing. So I fell in love with Bruce, and then
Bruce, how
last
did you not
year
call
we-
him Putty?
Oh,
It's just obvious.
that's a good question, actually. That would have been good. But he was, excuse me, he was named Batman when we adopted him. But he's much fancier than a Batman, so my son decided to change his name to Bruce.
Bruce.
It's very fitting for him, trust me. He's very
I was
fancy.
thinking like Bruce Irvin or,
Yeah,
but it's Bruce Wayne.
he's Bruce Wayne, yeah.
Ah, Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
I wonder why the Bruce, but it made sense with Batman, didn't it?
Of course.
Yeah.
So, with John Gruden coming into the building, obviously there's been a massive overhaul this off-season. And I was looking at the cuts, and the cuts aren't that bad. Actually, a lot of them are pretty understandable. It's probably the ones that have come in the building that some of them are a little bit but we'll see. So, just off-season before we get to the draft, I'll go through the cuts. So, David Amerson, Sean Smith, TJ Carey, all cut. Well, good riddance. Denico Autry.
TJ Carey, actually, I'm gonna interject. TJ Carey was our lead tackler last year, and he really stepped up to the plate when we didn't have hardly anybody to step up and actually take something out of that secondary. So I was actually disappointed that he left. So
Fair
I
call.
think
Yep.
overall we'll probably get the better end of that deal, but I was kind of disappointed to see him go initially.
Denico Autry would have been nice to keep him, but I mean we've picked lots of guys on both lines. Marshall Newhouse was cut. Cordarrelle Patterson, who didn't really take. That was a bit of a failed experiment.
I miss him. I don't care what anyone
No,
says.
Bill's already worked out how to use him. He's only had him for two pre-season games.
I'm with you. And yes, he has figured out how to use him.
Olawale left, but we've replaced him. We've upgraded, I believe. And Navarro Bowman we didn't re-sign, which I'm still disappointed about. But he's still on the street, so we'll see.
He's not exactly on the street, is he? He's probably got a really nice place.
I'm sure he's got a
probably
lovely
kicking back
place.
on the couch.
Absolutely.
I'm not really feeling sorry for him.
No. Coming into the building, Doug Martin, who, we haven't invested a lot in anyway. Geordie Nelson, who was a pretty big signing. Actually, I forgot to mention Michael Crabtree, of course. So,
And Marquette King.
and of
Marquette
course,
King.
Marquette King.
And Sebastian Janikowski, don't forget him.
Oh, of course.
What have you do, mate? What have you done any research at all?
No, but there was so
This
many.
is your team.
There
was
were so
a
many.
lot.
There was so many.
It is hard to keep track, seriously. It was like one a day for 6 weeks,
A ton.
at least.
Keith Smith, we brought in from the Cowboys. Griff Whalen, who's been doing some stuff in the preseason. He looks pretty good. Tahir Whitehead, who's going to be, he's okay, but he's going to get a lot of work in the linebacking core because we're a bit thin. Marcus Gilchrist.
Okay, hold on. Tahir Whitehead is probably one of the best free agent signings we've had this year. People don't realize how good he is. He had 99 tackles last year. I can't remember exactly the number, but he held up that back end of the Lions front seven. He can
I'm with
play in
you.
any one of those positions. I think you'll be surprised pleasantly. So,
Yeah.
Do you want me to take this over?
No.
I don't think the girls are really agreeing with anything that you're saying at the moment.
No, I agree. I agree that he's going to... Look, he's going to get a lot of work, certainly. And he did get a lot of work in that Lions D, you're right.
Well, they're on the field for a hell of a lot.
They were. That's very true. Rashawn Melvin, Sharice Wright, and also Derek Johnson, who, I wasn't sort of that rapt with that signing. Would have preferred Navarro Bowman, but as a nutshell, and there's lots to talk about, I know, but what were your favourites or ones you weren't a fan of? Or
I'm excited about Jordy Nelson. I think he's going to be great. I think that people are a little worried about his age, but I'm really excited to see what he can do. Quit laughing at me, Angria.
Yeah, I just noticed the eye roll. That's
Yeah, because I'm annoyed by it. I mean, he's not like 50. He's fine. What do you think? Yeah. I know some people.
Nelson.
Yeah, I know some people who are like, "Meh, he's done. You guys just got trash." So, whatever. Those are Packers fans though, because they're just jealous.
Oh, look, I think when Aaron Rodgers called out his wide receiving core this last week, he's okay. He's doing it for a reason. And one of the reasons is he had no say in Jordy Nelson leaving, and he's ticked. He's ticked losing someone like Jordy Nelson, and now
they were a good team.
Yep. Now he's got.
I think that's what Jordy Nelson thrives with, is that connection with his quarterback, and he had that connection with Aaron Rodgers for 9 years?
Yeah.
And now he's got Derek Carr, who's got a lot of similar traits to Aaron Rodgers. He still needs to learn a lot, and I think he can. So I think that's a connection that Derek Carr is going to enjoy having.
They did connect during practice a lot, actually. Just like Carr and Gruden, but
yeah, I think Jordy Nelson's one of those receivers that makes the job of a quarterback very easy.
Yes, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like such a great route runner, and his hands are just, he doesn't drop anything.
He just knows where to be.
Yeah.
He's in where he's meant to be. And look, he's been a wide receiver with a quarterback that no quarterback likes that the guy's not in the right spot, but Aaron Rodgers has been one of those guys that, mate, he hates it. He seriously, you're not on the team. If you're not going to be in the right spot, I don't care if you're on the field, I'm not throwing the ball to you. And that's just a testament. Jordy is always where he's meant to be. And that's what you'll find at the Raiders for Derek Carr.
Right.
Definitely.
And Jordy is super fast, and we need someone like that. So I'm excited to see him.
I was a little disappointed when I heard that we let Crabtree go. But
me too.
But we don't see what happens in the locker room, and we do know that he can be a bit of a diva and a bit of a negative influence in the locker room. I think maybe that was the main reason, really, that he went. Just like Marquette King, I guess, in a sense.
I think if they had just gotten rid of King, Crabtree wouldn't have been as sassy. Honestly, I think they played off of each other. But yeah, I was disappointed about him too, and I think he's going to do great things with the Ravens. But
mate, the dude's got a leg.
Huh?
The dude's got a leg. Man,
King.
Oh, King.
Oh, King has, yeah.
But she was talking about what's his name? What's his name?
Crabtree. He's got a nice set of pins too.
He might have a leg,
you know.
I don't know.
Good. No, yeah, I was disappointed about King too, but I mean, he's a punter, so people made fun of me for caring about him.
Well, the reason that King was cut was because of the money that he made.
Yep.
And because he went on the NFL Network and made fun of John Gruden. You don't do that to your new boss. It just doesn't, it never bodes well. And that's, he's kind of showing his colors now that he's in Bronco territory. He's not really making any friends. And, it's kind of worrisome to watch him just kind of burn bridges. But
I feel kind of
Michael
bad for him.
Crabtree was definitely that go-to guy in the clutch. He was a red zone target favorite for Derek Carr, but he's following a pattern. He kind of had the same kind of pattern in San Francisco. He went to Super Bowl and he was one of their best receivers. And then he kind of just took a turn. He just went downhill. And then he moved over to Oakland, had a refreshed start. And now you're looking at another iteration of that. So you see him go to Baltimore, and he's probably going to have a great year. I bet he'll have 2 great years, and then he'll probably follow the same pattern.
Yeah,
right.
He seems to be
he was really excited to go to Baltimore, though. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, it's like he's on his best behaviour when he first sort of lands somewhere, and then he just starts getting a bit...
He gets a feel of the joint, gets comfortable. Once he gets comfortable, then he becomes like a Crabtree.
Yes.
Right. Like any kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once they get comfortable, they start acting like the way they really are.
Don't even let them get comfortable, Jim. I don't. Keep mine on my toes all the time.
Let's mix in the draft because, man, there's so many new players on this Raiders team and a lot of draft picks, including Martavis Bryant, who I didn't mention in the free agents because, it happened on draft day, obviously. So in the first, Colton Miller, which I wasn't a fan of initially, but I've warmed to, and he's having a great training camp. And heaven knows we needed to kind of get someone in behind Donald Penn, who's, rapidly getting,
Rapidly, he's there.
Rapidly, yeah, he's there. Yeah, fading.
That dude looks like he's 50.
He
is looking a little rough, but that's what happens when you got like 3 baby mamas and you're married and you still got side chicks and fighting with people in the parking lot.
Oh
so
man, I want to be 50 then.
Fast.
That's what you got. I want to be that.
Oh man,
yeah. Sounds like he's living the dream.
And
don't play this for your wife.
I'm interested to hear what you both think of Reggie McKenzie because his last draft was not good at all. And he's had we can certainly look back at drafts where he's done well, but certainly of recent times it hasn't been impressive at all. And when I look at this one and you think, okay, what influences John Gruden going to have on what they do in the draft room? And they've really gone heavy on the lines. Obviously, PJ Hall in the second, he's looked great, by the way, defensive tackle. In the third, we picked up another offensive tackle, Brandon Parker. Obviously, we had the trade for Martavis Bryant. Arden Key, defensive end, who's also looked good. In the fourth, Nick Nelson, a cornerback. Maurice Hurst in the fifth, which was fantastic, defensive tackle. And then a couple of other picks in there. I won't maybe list them all, but obviously Johnny Townsend, punter, and in the last, Marcel Aitman, a wide receiver. So yeah, a lot of picks on the lines, which is really interesting. And I wonder if that's just John saying, listen, that's the first thing we've got to really make sure we've got like really solid in the trenches.
I hope he has more say because this is his team and he's changing things up, obviously. And we don't want a repeat of the past 10 years or so. I'm excited for some of the picks. I think Martavis Bryant is a disappointment, but hopefully not when the real season starts.
Well, I'm hit and miss on Reggie. I think he picked up 2 of the best players our team has ever had in one draft, and he also picked up a third player in that draft that has been constantly awesome. Gabe Jackson doesn't get enough credit for the guard that he is because he's amazing. He's a perfect complement to Kelechi Osemele. And you hit 3 times on that kind of player in one draft, and that's pretty impressive. And then fast forward to 2015, Amari Cooper still has stuff to prove, and he will, but he has flashed amazing things. He connects with Carr. It's a perfect connection. And then 16 and 17, but 18, I think this is going to be the draft the genius draft of his career. I think we got some steals in that draft that are going to go down in history.
My word. And I sort of feel like, I think the reaction in Raider Nation was pretty similar, but like when Maurice Hurst dropped in the 5th, that was when the draft felt like we'd kind of really made a good slate of picks, because the Colton Miller one, it was hard to get excited about it on the day. And Arden Key, a guy with a bit of baggage, brings in. But, if anyone can kind of bring out the best in a guy like this, it's John Gruden, surely.
And Bruce Irvin.
Right.
I was really excited to see Arden Key in the 4th because he was projected to be a first-round talent as well. And he has shown in the game. He did really well today. I think he didn't play last week, but in camp he's been doing great. I think the absence of Khalil Mack has actually benefited him. But I was excited to see him, and Bruce Irvin immediately took him under his wing and said, you're not going to screw up anymore because you're going to be on this team, and if you're going to be here, you're going to act like it. So I think between him and Gruden and Paul Guenther, the 3 of them are going to keep him on track, and if they can, he's amazing.
You brought up Osemele. I don't know in what context it was just then. I said to Adrian when we were watching the telecast, he was doing a sideline interview.
Yeah.
I said to Adrian, I said, how big is your screen? What is it? It's about 60-odd inch
Oh,
TV.
yeah. Yep.
Mate, he couldn't fit on the screen. I said, check the size of this dude out. Like, we know they're all big, but when they're all standing next to each other on the sideline, they've got their helmets on and all that, they're all big. But when you see them just in a T-shirt...
In civvies.
Civvies, standing next to some reporter who's probably... maybe he's close. Let's say he's close to 6 foot, and you see assembly, and he's just going, "Oh my god,
that guy!
How do you move that?"
Yeah.
And AJ said he could even get 10 yards with him blocking for him. And you haven't seen AJ run
and get 10 yards.
6'5", 330 pounds. He is.
Mate, he looked like 7 foot,
crazy.
400.
Yeah,
like 6'8".
When you see Ryan Switzer next to him, it's just hilarious.
It's like Santa with kids next to him.
That's awesome. So let's. Have you finished now, AJ?
Yeah, go.
Okay,
yeah.
We'll move across. Now, I'll do the offense. So we'll start as we always do with the main guy, and that's the quarterback. And look, John Gruden's come out and he's extremely impressed by just the amount of information that Carr can take in and the process of being able to remember it all. I think he said he's got like a photographic memory. You probably do with Gruden. Like you hear some guys talk about who've been under Gruden before, and just the terminology is that long. It's like a small novel of War and Peace with every play call. But as I said, the Gruden system is a complicated one. Look, his numbers dropped last season to more around what he did in his rookie season, and as AJ spoke, and you girls have spoken about, it wasn't the greatest year all round for the Raiders. But maybe more noticeable that it was the entire offense, not all resting on his shoulders, obviously. So you get the new head coaches we spoke about with John Gruden, but new receivers.
Sorry, Bruce wants to be on the show.
I'm loving your laid back attitude.
Hello, Bruce.
I'm going to call him Putty. I like Putty better.
Putty.
So you've got new receivers. You got an invigorated, let's hope so, running back in Lynch, who was more. Last year I don't know where he was there. Maybe it was just like, for him, it was just like a bit of a party sort of.
I think so.
Coming home.
Yeah.
So look, what are the expectations for him as a quarterback from you ladies and as a fan base? Because you left a little bit underwhelmed from the previous season.
Let's just say last season he was playing injured, and I don't think he had great rapport with any of the coaching staff or his teammates at the time. He was embarrassed by his play. Obviously, I said we were, but it wasn't all on him. It was on the coaching staff, the players. There just wasn't the team atmosphere in the locker room or on the field, which is really important, obviously. And I think that they have that this year. He's really connected with Gruden. I think that he's doing great with Jordy and his other teammates. So I think we're going to see more of a 2016 Carr.
Totally agree. Him and Gruden and their love affair started like the year that he was drafted. And it's kind of like they've been courting off and on a little bit. You know, when you text somebody and you're like, "Hi, how's it going? You're cute," and then you text them back, and you have this little text thing for a little while, and then finally you get together. And it's like kismet, fireworks everywhere, and those two are. It's almost gross watching on the sidelines because they're so excited about each other, and but it's making for, I think, awesome connections and awesome training, and nobody has anything but wonderful things to say about Gruden so far. I imagine if they can't say something nice, they won't say anything at all. But just Derek Carr just cavels over him. It's ridiculous how much they love each other.
There was a little bit of a twinkle, wasn't there, when they had that Gruden's quarterback room, whatever it is. You could see a little bit of a twinkle between them, wasn't there? You could. It's like the Pretty Woman thing with, the connection between Richard Gere and who's the woman?
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Yeah. When it clicks, like they know. Yeah, it's just there's a bit of that going on.
Carr even said he dreams about him. So
he's invaded his sleep time.
Oh, that's connection.
That was one of the funniest comments I think Carr's ever made about him.
Yeah. That was a great conversation. You should look that up because it's funny.
It was obvious looking back at Gruden's quarterback camp when Carr was there. It's obvious that Gruden really liked him.
Carr is the
That's-
teacher's pet.
Right.
Yeah.
He
right.
is.
Yeah.
He still has mixed comments about how Derek Carr was the most accurate one on his QB camp, and he broke his GoPro cameras because he would throw like right into the camera where it's supposed to be the target, and most people just kind of off to the left or off to the right. But Carr just, I guess, owed him money after that.
He's probably still trying to collect too.
Well, he's got it.
He's got it. That's
Yeah.
right.
So let's go switch across to the running back, and look, as I said when I was talking about with what Derek Carr has now in Marshawn Lynch, it was a disappointment, I think, for what people expected. Like a lot of people had written off Marshawn Lynch, me in particular. I'll put my hand up and said I thought he was still Marshawn Lynch, and I believe that there was still the hangover from the not getting the run from the 3-yard line or whatever is in the Super Bowl. And I think he sat on the bike because he didn't want to go in. Mate, I'll fake it. I've lost respect for the organisation in Seattle
Pete Carroll
with Pete Carroll and everything. So I thought, mate, this guy's still got a little bit more out there, and it's looking more like the old Marshawn Lynch, especially with the run he had the other night. Not so much that he broke through tackles, but more the speed that he showed. And you also add the addition of Doug Martin. Sorry for laughing. But Doug Martin's the type of guy that every time there's a year that he has to play, he plays. So you're probably more than likely going to get that year. Jalen Richard, still there. He's a good player, but he's always been a sort of a bit player. And look, Gruden relies on the run game. So is Lynch up to what Gruden will expect of him? Will be my first question.
I think he is. Marshawn Lynch did not have as bad a year last year as people give him unfortunate poor credit. He had almost 900 yards still, and he had 7 touchdowns. He was the most productive running back in the league in the last quarter of the season last year. So December was good to him. And he still runs through people like it's crazy. When you look at his stats if he averages between 11 and 20 carries, I did the math on this, so I'm going to sound like a nerd for a second. He has over 6 yards per carry, and that's unheard of. You know, when you add it all together, he had like 4.5 yards per carry for all of the season. But 6.5 yards per carry is ridiculous. It's crazy. And so there's a sweet spot for him. And when they did that, and that was like half of his games, they gave him somewhere in the teens. That was exactly what he needed. And I think with a new running back core with Doug Martin, because Doug Martin can be spectacular, and he's playing for his life right now, because if he doesn't have a good year, he's gone. So I think the running back core is going to be much improved, especially now that we've got fullbacks to run in front of Marshawn.
Marshawn Lynch looked really good last week. I was impressed.
60-yard touchdown that got called back, or was it 30 yards? 30-yard touchdown.
60. It was 60.
Was it 60? Holy
it was
cow.
60.
Yeah. I almost feel like a coach like Gruden can bring out the best in Marshawn, because Marshawn's just kind of a different kind of guy, isn't he?
So's Gruden. There you go.
And so's Gruden.
Yeah.
And I think Gruden doesn't talk in riddles. He's a straight talker, and he'd be just putting it to Marshawn that, you know, this is what I want from you and you can do it. And I think it'd just be something Marshawn would respond to, I feel.
I agree. He's a no BS kind of guy.
Yeah.
Marshawn responds to that, direct kind of approach, and that's kind of the guy he is too. Obviously, he sits there and he's only there so he doesn't get fined. That's the kind of guy you're getting, and John Gruden recognizes that he still has talent and he's still ready to work, and he does. And it's, I think that's a good connection for the two. I saw them on the sidelines today joking around and talking and stuff, and that's a guy. Marshawn's very personable if you just talk with him one-on-one. I mean, you put a press room in front of him. Who wants to talk to those people? But
Have you talked with him one-on-one?
Yeah, I haven't, but I've seen those. I mean, he's just a guy that responds to that. Be direct. Tell me how it is. Don't blow smoke, and I'm good. We're good.
I think Gruden's the type of guy that if you see them talking on the sideline, you did today, and that they wouldn't be talking about football. I think Gruden's a very smart guy that I'm not going to, every time I talk to my guys, I'm going to talk about football. I'll talk about anything else that you're interested in, or he seems to be, and from what I've heard,
He's a relationship guy.
Yeah, he's a relationship builder.
He's definitely a player's coach. He likes to have that special connection. I mean, look at the players that played for him. Charles Woodson, Tim Brown, Rich Gannon is constantly talking about the relationship they had and still have to this day. So he makes those player connections, and I think that's really important to him, which makes a huge difference on the sidelines.
And how did you feel about the addition of Doug Martin? Like, if it wasn't Doug Martin, like, was there someone else out there you thought would be a good number 2 behind Lynch?
I'm actually excited about Doug Martin. I don't know. What about you, Angria?
I know she pulled her face at me.
I was. I just didn't think there was anybody else out there that would be a good number 2 behind Marshawn.
Right.
The guys that we have, other than those 2 front runners, are young guys, and I think they both had bad years. Richard and Washington were great in their rookie campaigns, but last year was rough for everybody, and I don't think they're going to blame either one of them for having a bad year because they're both already looking better than they were.
Richard looked good today. I was impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, AJ
he
said
caught
that
one
too.
Of that little what was it? The little toss over the pile pass that EJ Manuel made, and he actually caught that and took it a couple yards. So he's been looking a lot better.
Did EJ
Much
Manuel
improved.
throw a ball?
Yeah,
Did he complete a pass?
He did.
completed a pass. Yeah.
did.
Oh man.
It must have been
It
the
was
second.
while he was
must have
going
been the
down to
second
the
half.
ground, though.
While he's going down.
Yeah.
It was like, just get it away. And it just happened. Someone happened to be in the area.
Yeah, that was all Richard. That had nothing to do with Manuel.
Exactly.
I must confess that it was one of my disappointments with the draft. But then again, you know, you've got holes to fill and you've got a plan. But this was a draft where there are a lot of highly touted running backs. Like, running back was deep, and it felt like an opportunity lost in a way. Like, they could have, even like the Rams picked up John Kelly in the 7th round. Like, someone like that would have been perfect maybe to sit behind Lynch and learn, and, you know, in a year or two's time, be the guy.
Yeah, he could be. But the one thing that I like about Gruden as well is that he sees talent and he sees potential, and he knows how to develop it, or he knows who he can put that person with to develop the talent. And I don't think Richard and Washington were done yet. You can't hold it against 2 guys for having a bad year under just a crap coaching staff. I still think they have a lot in the tank. This is their 3rd year on the field. There's no reason to give up on these guys.
Gruden likes Play-Doh. He can mold anyone into what he wants them to be.
Yes, he does.
AJ, you said the same thing. So we'll move across to the wide receivers. And look, there was a whole reshuffle, wasn't there, in the wide receiving room? Lockers were cleaned out, and new people hung up their jerseys. As we said, Michael Crabtree's now at the Ravens, which will make Week 12 quite interesting this year. See what happens.
I'm so excited.
See what happens there. Cordero Patterson, as we said, he finds himself in New England. As we spoke about, another head coach can see if they can work this bloke out. So taking over the vacated Lockers was Jordy Nelson, the talented yet underperforming Martavis Bryant, who I've been a fan of since he was at
Steelers.
Even
Before that.
Yeah. He just hasn't lived up to what his capabilities are, and that's the ugliest word in sport, which is potential. Then you got the little jitterbug slot guy in Ryan Switzer, comes across from the Cowboys, also a punt returner, as AJ spoke about, Griff Whalen, who via Indy, Miami, San Diego, New England, Baltimore. He's getting some frequent fly points up. Dwayne Harris comes in from New York, and you draft Marcel Aitman. So remaining, obviously, is your number 1 strike receiver, and that's Amari Cooper. And we know that Gruden really likes to work with one wide receiver. I like to think that he's probably going to change that up a little bit now that he's got Jordy Nelson there. But look, last year he played 14 games, 48 catches for 680 yards and 7 TDs. And look, to be honest, half of those stats were made up in 2 games.
Yeah.
Against, I think it was the final week 17, had 115 and a touch, and week 7 against Kansas City, where he absolutely went bananas for 210 and 2 TDs. So, look, Gruden, he's got a vet in Geordie. He's got a freak in Martavis. He's got Amari Cooper, who's just a really good number 1 receiver. He's got a speedy little slot guy. So, How does he work this room?
Oh, I don't envy him. I don't envy anybody in that wide receiver room because those guys are all fighting hard for their jobs. Marcel Aitman looked really good today, and they talked about how he always makes a play. Every single day he makes at least one play that could be on a highlight reel for the training camp highlight reel, whatever. And Griff Whalen is actually pulling some rabbits out of the hat, so he's been looking really good too. So obviously, there's a couple that are a given. So Jordy and Amari are probably almost a guarantee. I wouldn't imagine why they wouldn't be. But Martavis, if he doesn't break out a little bit, if he doesn't show them who that guy is that can actually catch, last year, I can't remember his exact stats. I would have to look them up. But he caught, in what, 8 or 10 games, he made up 500 or 600 yards and still had 3 touchdowns. So that's plenty. That's a lot for somebody who was not even number 1 or number 2 receiver behind Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, who was just a wonderkind last year. So he's got to do something, but we know he's capable of doing it. We're just holding our breath, waiting to see the white tiger.
Picking up the playbook, which I'm kind of afraid he's not trying hard enough because I don't understand, where the issue is. And if he's just not putting in 100%, he's not going to make it, which is a big disappointment because we were excited for him.
I think it's always a disappointment when you see... it happens constantly in the NFL. It happens in a lot of sport that you have these guys that just have this innate ability to play the game that they are. They're just born to play, and they just... Maybe that's the whole problem. Maybe because they do it so naturally is that they just think everything eventually comes to them. And
it just take it for granted.
Yeah, and it just doesn't because you're on the field with a whole group of guys who are in exactly the same... Oh, not all of them. A lot of them work really hard, but they're all extremely talented. You're no longer on a field in college where there's only a handful of guys that are going to play in the NFL. All these guys are in the NFL. They're all playing for the livelihoods. They're playing for their families. They're playing, for their life, basically, because this is what they've given up for.
Yeah, exactly. This is their life. And these are the guys that are all like the top 1% of everybody that they played with. So you make a really good point. That's like, it's sad to watch him kind of crumble, and we're not even watching him crumble. We're just, like Jenny said, I don't think he's trying.
He's just fading away. He's a bit like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future when he's looking at the family portrait. It's just slowly fading away. That's what it's like, isn't it? Just watching this guy just slowly disappear out of the NFL.
And the strange thing is, it feels like the perfect opportunity for him because I don't know what was happening in the background in Pittsburgh exactly, but obviously he had the huge suspension, and then when he came back, there was a whole lot of stuff about him not getting the ball and not being sort of the focus of the offense and stuff. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on, obviously, in the locker room. I don't know if he felt like he was fully supported by the organisation. So it's like it's a fresh start, and you've got a fantastic head coach who would be so supportive and would give you all of that mentoring, you would think. So you'd think it's like the perfect opportunity.
Right. Well, he better turn it around.
No, exactly right. So, look, Jared Cook at the tight end. And, look, you've got a few on the roster, but he's the only one that I actually knew who he was. Sorry, I don't know. You can correct me, but I didn't really notice the guy who's at number 2, and I haven't even written his name down, to be honest. But, look, he had a serviceable year last year, didn't he? Really, 54 catches, 688 yards and 2 TDs. And he took up like 14% of the target share. How does it work out for Jared Cook this year?
Jared Cook's their senior receiving tight end. So Lee Smith is a superior blocking tight end, and he can still do some receiving, but he's really up there as a 6th man on the line most of the time. I mean, that's where his strength is. And Jared Cook can actually pull in some balls. He did really well last year, I think, for his first year on the team, on a struggling team at that. So I think he's probably going to pick it up this year. It's been looking good. Derek Carrier is the other one that they brought on. And I haven't really heard a whole lot about him. So it's kind of going to remain to be seen, I guess.
I was going to say, because Aaron Rodgers must be getting really ticked off because he wasn't happy about Jared Cook leaving either.
Right.
Right.
And now Geordie's gone. It's just like, so someone at the Raiders is just, maybe someone at the Raiders just doesn't like Aaron Rodgers, and the best way to tee him right off is just to take his receivers away from him one by one. Each year, I don't know who's going to be next. Maybe you get Devontae Adams next year. Oh, he's just signed up.
Ha Clinton Dix.
Well, they didn't have the greatest year last year either, so
No.
I think, I don't know. We'll see how that goes now that everyone's traded players.
So we'll talk about the offensive line, who's very critical for any team. You're protecting your number one asset. You're punching holes for your number one running back. So look, 216, Pro Football Focus had the Raiders line as one of the most dominant in the league. Saw a slight drop off last year from that dominance, but we still ranked number 3 in pass blocking, with Rodney Hudson grading out at 99.6. I think he actually led the centres with one of the highest marks, only allowing 3 quarterback pressures all year. So you have, as AJ said, Marshall Newhouse was released. You drafted Colton Miller in the first and Brandon Parker in the third, both tackles. Now, it's the interior that's really set for you guys, isn't it? Like a really strong assembly, which is just, you can see, from what I saw today, he can do it by himself. Hudson and Jackson. So I take it, I'm just guessing here, that Miller will take the left, and then it's a bit of a battle for the right side between Parker and, how do you pronounce his last name? I've asked you 3 times. Bruno Giacomini. So how does the line play out?
Well, Donald Penn has actually been playing the right tackle position.
When I saw him at 50 years old today, I sort of thought...
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not going to last.
Yeah, but they're not going to just drop him without having a confidence in whoever is going to take that right tackle. We don't need any more turnstiles because Derek Carr is John Gruden's number 1 priority, obviously. And like he said on draft day, we need somebody who's going to protect our number 1 asset. Colton Miller's been doing really well. We don't hear a lot about him, and that's a good thing for a lineman.
If Carr gets hurt again, we're screwed. So he better have some protection out there.
The offensive line is looking fantastic, and as you said, Colton Miller is doing great in camp, which is a good sign. And, even actually, I should just mention, I know we've talked about quarterbacks already, but even Connor Cook in the preseason's looked all right. I mean, much better than he did last year. It's EJ Manuel, I think, that's not looking very good at all.
He had a rough day today.
He did.
But, it begs the question. They were playing the Rams, and they decided not to play any of their starters. Did they decide to not play their playbook either?
Yeah,
I think possibly. That would. Yeah, well, you play them in week 1, isn't it? Did you say week 1?
Yeah.
You're not going to show your cards, are you?
No.
Nah.
You want to be Kenny Rogers.
Let's talk about the defense, and obviously the defense wasn't great last year. Finished 23rd in total D. Ken Norton Jr. was fired after 10 games and replaced by John Pagano, as we mentioned at the top. And obviously 0 interceptions, as you mentioned, Jen, 0 interceptions in the first 10 and only 14 sacks. And this offseason, we've brought in Bengals DC Paul Gunther, which is a fantastic hire. Over his 4 years as the Bengals defensive coordinator, the Bengals have intercepted 69 passes. That's actually the most in the NFL over that span. We're hopefully going to see this of all the units. The defense is one that's, I don't know. We're going to see a lot of change, and there's a lot of molding that needs to take place, I feel. Probably the biggest question right at the top is Khalil Mack, and man, we wish it was all done and dusted. It's like, what's Reggie doing? Can't they just get it done? What are your thoughts on the whole Mack situation at the moment?
Face palm. I don't know.
We're just so frustrated with talking about it.
We are. That's all anyone talks about.
It's either that or what horrible thing did Gruden say today, and it's so horrible. I can't even believe how people are talking about trading one of the best defensive players in the league, certainly the best defensive player we have had on our team all century outside of Charles Woodson and Nnamdi Asomugha, but he's completely different. So, yeah. I mean, this is probably the best defensive player we've drafted all century. Woodson was drafted in 98. So they're going to get it done. They're not going to trade him. They're not going to take a number 1 draft pick from the Packers. Give me a break. It's just something to talk about, and it's enough already. Talk about Aaron Donald. I'm sick of hearing about Khalil Mack.
They're talking about Aaron Donald too, to be fair. There's a lot of rumors going around. Obviously, I told you earlier that some Packers fan told me that he's going to go to the Packers, and it's already like almost done. So I wanted to punch him in his face because that's not going to happen. But
I don't know why they nicknamed me Angria. She's the angry one.
I'm very angry. When it comes to Khalil Mack taking him away from me,
yeah,
just makes me
We would not
laugh.
be happy about that. And I don't think Reggie McKenzie or John Gruden is that stupid. And I think Paul Gunther would throw a fit.
My word.
No, but, people are saying that he isn't getting along with Gruden. Gruden doesn't want him. He doesn't want Gruden. And I don't know if there's any truth behind that.
Oh, I don't believe that at all. I think it's, if anyone, it's Reggie McKenzie. And I mean, I think Gruden's just dealing with the players that are like on the park right now. I don't know that he's sort of involving himself in it so much. I don't know. But I sort of feel like, well, he's going to get like Von Miller type money. Just pay the guy. I don't understand the reluctance to sort of pay the guy. I mean, he's got the results on the board.
How are the Raiders situated salary cap wise?
Not
Well, no, not good. Someone who just took a pay cut. Penn?
Donald Penn did, yeah.
Yeah.
And that freed up about $3 million, but it's the guaranteed money versus the bonuses. So, Mark Davis has to have a certain amount in his, available for guaranteed money versus bonuses. And if he doesn't have that, they're going to have to write it they're going to have to write that contract a certain way. And I just don't know that they're able to renegotiate that contract in a way that Khalil Mack's agent wants it to be written. I mean, I'm not behind the scenes, so I don't know, but I deal with contract stuff all the time. I can tell you, it's never ever easy to put out that much money, even if it does calculate out to more over a 4 or 5 year span.
Yeah, my wife's always looking for a new contract. Mate, stay around. Every year there's got to be bonuses, and the bonuses I leave her alone. So it's working well. It's not financial. It's just free time.
As long as you work it out, that's what matters.
Yes,
right?
That's right. But let's look at the D-line as a whole, because let's assume we've got Mac back in the fold, and he's going to need help. And look, there's some help that's come into the building and some help from other places as well. So obviously Bruce Irvin is going to do some work off the edge this year, which will be great. Arden Key has looked good. PJ Hall has looked good. Maurice Hurst is someone else that's in the mix. Mario Edwards Jr. as well. So how do you see the whole D-line panning out? Because obviously Mac needs some help, and I think they've tried to address that at least.
I think PJ Hall did just fine without Mac there.
He did. Got a sack last week. He was all over the field. He was present, and I think he was working for his job big time. Like I said earlier, the absence of Mac has actually benefited a lot of these guys because they're getting first team reps that they normally wouldn't get. So that development is really important.
They're getting time out there that they wouldn't normally have, and they're playing for a spot that they feel like might not even, Mac might not even be there. So they're playing for his spot, and it makes them play harder, and it shows us what they really have. And PJ Hall really put it out there last week, and it was great.
Okay, let's look at linebacker, and we spoke about Tahir Whitehead before, and Derek Johnson. So I was a little bummed we didn't re-sign.
We didn't talk about him. He got shot down.
It was a discussion, a friendly discussion. That's it.
Yeah.
I was a little bummed about us not re-signing Navarro Bowman, but I mean, if Derek Johnson can, I'm not as excited about Derek Johnson as I was Bowman, but if he can be at least kind of similar presence in the middle of the D, that would be nice. Nicholas Morrow is doing okay in training camp. He played well today, actually, as well. But what do you think the linebacker core sort of looks like? It's a little bit of a work in progress in ways.
No, I agree. a dozen guys fighting for 3 positions, or, I mean, obviously they're going to be rotational. I think Gunther's going to have more rotational options than we've seen in a lot of years. So it's probably not as questionable, but we do need that Mike position, and Navarro Bowman stepped in and took it flawlessly. So I was really disappointed they didn't sign him either. Derek Johnson's old, and Derek Johnson he wasn't the best producer on the Chiefs. It's been a couple years, but he's got the experience, and I think he's got the leadership skills. That's what Gruden was looking for. I think that's the signing that they were looking for. So there's a lot of young linebacker talent here that somebody needs to develop and kind of take under their wing. And I think that's what Derek Johnson was for.
Gruden really admires leadership. So yeah, that's there. I can't remember what I was going to say when you were talking. I was going to say something, but I don't remember what you said.
So. Profound and perfect, wasn't it? It's going to be the most amazing thing ever said about linebackers, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It just ran out of your brain.
Oh, I was just going to make fun that we have a lot of really old guys on our team right now.
It's like there's a huge age gap. We go from like 20s to mid-30s. That's it. There's not very many people in between.
We're going to need a geriatric nurse on the sideline.
There's going to need to be a hip tent instead of just the concussion tent.
Right.
That's right. Oh, man.
Maybe you could put one of those little disabled sort of, they have on when you go to the shopping centre on the ground, they put the big blue disabled and just park one of those on the side and everybody can stand
handicap
inside.
seating over here.
Handicap seating. Exactly.
Exactly.
They're going to invest in a large number of team walkers.
That's right.
Silver and black. They come in silver, so that's, battle.
Now, a lot of question marks in the defensive backfield as well. So a lot of moving pieces. I'm a big fan of Carl Joseph. He needs to kind of step up, but he's a good piece at least. Reggie Nelson returns, which, I don't know how you feel about that. Not,
you were real excited about that, AJ.
Not very excited. Sharice Wright and Marcus Gilchrist, who are sort of ex-Charger guys who are, I'm not that impressed with either, I have to say. And Gary and Conley, who kind of just needs to, this is where he kind of needs to show us stuff, because now he's healthy and he really does need to step up and show his draft pedigree, really, doesn't he? But so many moving pieces in that backfield too, a lot of names, and I don't really know. I mean, how do you feel about how it's going to kind of play out?
I just hope Conley can stay healthy.
He will. I mean, he's still had a little bit of an owie during training camp. He had a hip strain, is what they called it. But he came out today and he made some good plays. He didn't play for long, obviously, but he looked good when he was on the field. We saw him a couple of games last year, and he flashed some amazing skill. And if we can get that guy, he'll be worth the draft pick. He'll definitely prove his worth. Mike Haynes was on the sidelines today. I don't know if you guys saw him with the interview, and he said that one of the things that he looks for in a cornerback is their foot. And he said this guy's going to be amazing if you can get him, keep him on the field, keep him healthy. He's going to be an amazing piece.
And definitely win if he goes dancing on the stars. Dancing with the stars.
Yes. It'll be a couple years before then, though. Hopefully.
Now, it might be hard to... The Raiders are not being talked up by the national media at all, and it's funny because like last year we were getting a ton of really positive buzz, and then look at what happened to the season, and then this season we're getting absolutely trashed. Like, I think maybe the favourites for the West are maybe the Chiefs or the Chargers, certainly not us, but I don't mind that. But what do you think? I mean, for the first year under John Gruden, maybe we don't, we're not going to necessarily win the Super Bowl. Let's cut ourselves a bit of slack. But I mean, what would you be happy with, and what do you think we'll get?
They scared of Gruden. They're just scared. They're all. Wouldn't you be? I mean, he's mad. He looks angry. He just got handed a contract that's huge, and it's contingent upon winning, according to him. So, I would be scared too.
I would be happy.
His role model is Bill Belichick. What do you think?
Oh my goodness. I would be happy with 8-8, but I'm thinking more like 10-6.
My prediction was a 9-7. I think we'll get back to a winning season. I don't want to call anything more than that at this point because, like you said, last year we were so excited. Everything was going to go great. We had a 12-4 season the year before, and Derek Carr's back healthy, and boom, that's it.
I think there's something about the lack of respect that the team is getting that Gruden will just absolutely eat off. You know, I think he will love that dynamic in the locker room, and he'd just be telling those guys and just like revving them up. So, I mean, I'm trying to be quite positive. Like you, Jen, I sort of feel like 8-8 would be great, really. Settle for that as a year one.
Yep.
And then onwards and upwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, listen, one thing we've been asking our guests is to nominate a locker room guy. And if there's something that Gruden's been doing, he's probably been gathering a ton of locker room guys, like specifically. He's really wanted kind of developing that culture. But who do you think is the locker room guy? You can nominate an offensive and a defensive guy if you want, but like who's doing that in the locker room, sort of being that glue for everybody?
Derek Carr.
She's always going to say Derek Carr.
I will always say Derek Carr.
I can see
I'll put a love heart next to that too. Put a love heart. There we go. Jen for Derek.
Yes. Derek Carr is a family man, and he wants to make Papa Gruden happy, and
It's turning blue.
Yeah, but Buddy Gruden, I don't know, but yeah, he's gonna do anything he can to make Gruden happy, and if that's keeping the locker room straight, then that's what he's gonna do.
I think Gruden's probably the biggest locker room guy, but if we're just talking about players, I gotta say Bruce Irvin. Him and Kelechi Osemele. Can I do a defense and an offense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay? KO is such a positive guy. He's always happy. I never see the dude without a smile on his face. And he's always involved in stuff, and he seems like he's always there. And when Marshawn Lynch got his helmet last year, that was the cutest moment ever in football history, I think. He was walking out of the building holding that thing like it was his brand new puppy or something. And Kelechi Osemele's like, "Hey man, welcome. You want half of my sandwich?" And it's just like he's just laid back and easy, and he's always welcoming. And Bruce Irvin, like I touched on earlier, he wants people committed. He wants to know you're going to be a Raider. And I don't know why he was a Seahawk for the first part of his career, because he belongs in Oakland. He belongs in silver and black.
For sure. Now,
what about you? Who's your locker room guy?
Oh, I think Geordie's going to be a massively positive influence in that locker room, just not just with the wide receivers, but I think like all told. I almost feel like John's got him in almost for that specifically. You know, I think he's going to be great on the field, but I feel like the stuff he's going to do behind the scenes is almost going to be of greater worth.
Oh, I think Gruden's he's a smart enough guy to realise he brings someone like that in from a culture that they've had in that wide receiving core in Green Bay, and with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers and what he expects from his wide receivers, and what Geordie has shown that he's given Rodgers and the Packers, and now bring that across. And this is how we build a locker room of wide receivers, and what we should do to make our quarterback jobs a hell of a lot easier.
Definitely. I totally agree with that.
Well, that was our Raiders preview with Angria, Trask and Jenny Lynn from the Just Win Ladies. It was great talking to them, talking Raiders, and the conversation, you know, the one that we've put out ends a bit abruptly because we did continue it over with their podcast. So I will post a link to that, and you can listen to the sort of the next bit of the conversation, but we didn't kind of get a chance to close. So this is the close. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying all our team previews. The season's getting closer and closer. We're nearly there. Thanks for listening, as always. And on behalf of G and myself, catch you next time.